Raad on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Raad.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Raad Life. We are here in the infamous
cavernous
studios of
cavernous
OC Talk Radio. You need like some sort of like ghoulish music or something.
Oh, you think so?
Okay,
yeah. For Christmas?
Yeah, for Christmas? Wow, really? The Grinch is here, ladies and gentlemen. He's here early this year. This is really sharp today. Is it the rain? It sounds like a really very crisp.
It does. I
Did you change anything in the
I
studio?
can't explain it here. Let me try turning that down. See if that's same.
I know it's not my voice.
Somebody's tapping or something. Somebody's nervously tapping. All right, there we go.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
Ray makes my voice far more resonant.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well, I think I should just have you host the show.
Yeah, you should decide.
you know, I need a
from
couple
here.
minutes before we get started here. After last week's episode, I want to make sure I massage my prostate
last
before.
week? That wasn't last week. That was not last week's episode.
Oh, no, that
was the week before. Last week, no, he doesn't realize how funny he just basically set me up right now, right? Last week's episode was with cigars, Monica, remember?
Oh, that's right. Okay.
When prostate is a setup, I'm concerned about being here.
You can leave now, right?
That's right.
Actually, all right. So, just in all jest, though, there was a
those
comment, and I want to just give a shout out to our good friend and fellow board member Steve Gostin, who basically made a funny remark on Facebook when I said
That's
that Todd and Dan were going to be on, and he said, "Oh no, like this is trouble." And then
this
you
is going
responded and
south,
said, "Yeah, we're definitely going to need the 3-minute delay. We need a 3-minute delay on
Where's
this
the
thing."
cough button?
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the prostate. Just lean
That's
over
right.
and cough.
Cough.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wow, this is like. I don't know if I should have ever done
tying it all
that show. Did we leave an impact on you, Paul? Is that what you're
was the
telling me?
most bizarre
You're a
show
lot
you've
more
ever
anal
done.
today than you.
I guess it penetrated.
Oh, Dan even weighs in.
All right, now I'm sitting.
All right,
uncomfortably.
okay. So
We're done.
this is the warm-up show.
Right.
But gentlemen, thank you for being here. If anybody is not aware, that lives on social media, last Tuesday, being yesterday, was
Giving Tuesday.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
when the heck did we start having, like, it's like Hallmark cards, right? There's a hashtag for everything.
That's right.
So it's
Hashtag Todd Matters.
Todd Matters.
Yeah, Todd
Oh,
Matters.
Todd Matters.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a new hashtag. Everybody, just start using
Write it down.
Okay.
Start spreading that.
What if
one.
your name's not Todd? You still matter?
Oh, well.
Oh well.
Even
Okay.
more so.
All right, but no, truly, yesterday was Giving Tuesday, and unless you're dead or under a rock, you probably got hit up by a lot of organizations, a lot of people that were basically advocating and asking for your support, including me. I'm guilty as charged of organizations that are near and dear to our hearts,
Right.
Whether they are based on mission or something we're involved in. And you were asked to basically pay attention, which in all things, being fair, I love that idea because it gives us an opportunity to actually raise awareness. But like everything else,
and some money.
well, and raise money, hopefully.
Right.
But like everything else, when everybody's asking me to pay attention for something, it gets to be noise, and I stop hearing it. Right. So, what we want to talk about today, and let me just introduce my guests for the show, Todd Eckert and Dan Pittman. Dan is chair. Sorry, guys, that's my phone. I guess I committed
Dan, you
some.
said he was a professional.
Sound effects.
I committed some FCC kind of
my
issue here.
gosh.
We talked about prostate too many
It was
times.
from his doctor.
Yes, that was a very probing text message.
The results are in.
So, but Dan, I'm trying to have a serious show. These three just won't let me do it.
You started it.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So Dan is chairman of the board at Project Independence.
Yes.
That's
And
why he's
Todd,
got the funny hat.
and Todd, yes, he's got the funny hat.
A great organization. If you
great-
haven't gone and looked it up, do so. If you don't remember any of the previous episodes, check them out.
Yeah, we've had
Paul
Todd has
is
been
my
here.
new favorite. No.
Paul's your new favorite. His check has cleared.
Yeah.
Okay, but along with other this
Pro-independence.org.
Yes.
Did you say depends?
I did say, I said proindependence.org.
Proindependence.org.
Yeah.
That's the website.
And then Todd's been on the Raad Life a couple of shows, and I think he's been on other shows here on Orange County Talk Radio. We've done one where we even brought in some of our clients. We refer to them as our clients, and basically shared their own experiences, and we highlighted some of our corporate partners that thank you very much for your support. And no good deed goes unpunished. By having that happen on this show, I was then basically privileged to be asked to be a member of the board, and I joined. And it's a great board, and I echo Paul's comments. It's a great organization and mission. Give the website again, Dan.
It's www.proindependence.org.
And since Dan's the PR guy, give us the 60-second pitch for those who don't know.
Well done,
somehow.
Paul.
Oh, boy, that's going to be an easy one for me. We support adults with developmental disabilities. The whole point is to let people be as independent as they can be with the challenges that they face. And we've got a marvelous group of clients who demonstrate every day that they're all about wanting to be independent.
And what do you do for them? How do you keep them?
Well, we provide a number of services. We have a supported employment program, which we've been talking about heretofore, where our folks get gainfully employed at local companies. They have a job coach that is there with them so that there's guaranteed productivity. There's a benefit to the company from a financial perspective because, according to best I understand it, we make up some of the difference between the minimum wage and the amount of money that would be paid to that employee. And then they get the most loyal employee they can imagine.
That's
and after
the key. You get people doing things that are what we would consider ordinary, maybe even menial, if that's a harsh word.
Didn't we have Big Ben here one
We
time?
had Big Ben.
We the Laughing Ben,
From Home Depot. And these are people that are, these are jobs they have struggled to keep people employed in.
Well,
and
Yeah,
yet
right.
your population is thrilled to have a job.
the
and to do
turnover
these
from our folks is pretty minimal.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I experienced it personally in this seat. Thank you for not going over there. Okay, all right. But
Todd's a setup, and
I
even hesitated waiting for us.
No, I was like, where's it coming from? Which one of you guys are going to pitch?
cymbal crash.
Right.
This is a small room, please.
But well, we're all friends here. But not that friendly though. But so I actually personally experienced it in this chair. I was not having a very good day. And Todd came in, and we knew we were going to do this. We were going to highlight, and I was not a board member at the time, and it was going to highlight some of the clients. And you brought in Big Ben.
Big Ben.
And I remember at the end of that show, and people can go back and listen to it. I actually shared from where I was at that moment, and I said, if anybody's feeling bad, if anybody's even like in a bad mood, and you happen to be near the Home Depot, I think it was
Santa Ana.
in Santa Ana,
Yeah,
go in and see Big Ben for like 2 seconds, right?
Uplifting.
The celebration of the human spirit that came across from him when he was here with us was phenomenal.
Well, in fact, and this is Todd. I've been with Project Independence now 4 years, but when I first arrived, I went, I'm going to go immediately to the 66 employers that we have that employ part-time or full-time over 130 of our clients, and I'm going to thank them.
Well, because and I'm sorry I didn't mention it, but Todd, your role at Project Independence is
development. I
Director
raise
of
support.
Development. Yep.
So and I immediately went to Home Depot to say thanks so much for hiring Ben, and he let me thank him for a while, and he said, "Well, I need you to take a break here.
Tone it down, dude."
Yeah, well, yes, we're happy to employ you, but understand that, and I hope I'm not giving him away, but he said, understand, before Ben joined us, I referred to my team as aprons on the floor. Hopefully you can find them. Hopefully they'll be resourceful. Hopefully they'll be polite. He said, I hired Ben, and within weeks, my team was showing up on time. They were far more engaged, and the customers liked it because Ben raised the bar. He said he raised the bar on my whole team. And if you go in there, Ben, Dan, I was in there the other day. I want to tell you this. I just heard this shout out of Ben, and it was just his exit. And the painting section was saying, "Hey Ben, have a great weekend." He said, "I got paid, and I've got the weekend off." And it's the joy you felt in this room, and you multiply that by the dozens.
That's what struck me the last couple of conversations that when you've been in here. One, there are a lot of employers who want to do well, who want to do something, either for public relations or for team building or just because they're good people and they want to do something. But they must have some hesitancy hiring people with severe developmental disabilities. Oh, my goodness, how is this going to impact the team? How is this going to impact the customers? And instead of it being something to be concerned about, it's actually a positive. I mean, not just a feel good, do good, slap yourself in the back good moment. We did something good for somebody. This is a positive reaction. Your team goes up. Your attendance goes up. Your customers react in a way that
Our customers adore.
Absolutely.
And it takes a lot of the mystery out of it too. We and our model is what we call the inclusive model. Whereas a lot of people are familiar with people with disabilities will be at one central location, and you might bid a contract for recycling, whatever. We're an inclusive model where for 42 years, we felt that it's incredibly important to be in the bloodstream of the community because, and Paul, thank you for bringing that up, we call it the reciprocal benefit. It's not just our client gaining a sense of independence and worth and camaraderie and friendship and income, but it's also for you. The mystery's taken out. And you're like, oh, these guys are just like me. They want to have their own place.
You know, Todd,
Exactly.
You touch on something, and before we lose some people, I just want to make sure we're clear on what the purpose of this particular show is. I want it to be obviously, vested interest for me. I wanted to highlight Project Independence at this week of giving. And
we shanghaied your theme, didn't we?
No, you didn't Shanghai my theme because I did a 3 for Tuesday yesterday on my design company where I basically asked people to pay attention, maybe consider donating or somehow supporting Project Independence, Meals on Wheels Orange County, which used to be Senior Serve, and Impact Giving. And I'm gonna have Jennifer from Impact Giving actually on a special show this Friday. We're going to make up for a show that we tried to do last month. We were not able to because of some technical difficulties. But with that being said, I also want to tell everybody who's listening, the purpose of today's show is to also address the realities and changes that are happening in the nonprofit world. And how do we basically position ourselves for success in our responsibility as being board members or people that are working in sort of a more of a staff capacity to succeed and to continue the mission of something as important as this, because we really impact lives. I mean, they impact us back. It's not, it's not just a one-way street. But how do we do that in the changing nature and environment of nonprofits, where everybody basically is getting tighter on the funding and the monies, and that's really a big part of what makes us continue to be able to deliver on our mission. But how do we do that, and how do we do it in a way that is truthful to the mission of each organization, right? Because otherwise, in a field of noise and cacophony in social media and otherwise, that message sometimes could get lost or diluted or confused with something else, right?
And I'll go one step further. I don't think the general public, me included, knows that there are any changes or more difficult times ahead for charities. We just assume they do what they do, and thank God they're there. And like the water, the tap water, you turn it on and it's there. You don't think about it. I see Big Ben at Home Depot, and I think, great, somebody's helping out somebody, and it's a win-win for everybody here. I don't think what goes into getting the Big Bens of the world trained, ready, coached, and get somebody to take a chance on them. I mean, that's not an easy task.
No, Paul, and you raised another important point. I mean, I've been involved on nonprofits for a while, right? So there are people who look at that, and I did at one point as well, and you go, oh, great, somebody's taking care of that. That's awesome. I feel good because it's being taken care of.
Right? I can take that off my list of worries.
Right, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to feel guilty about the fact that I could maybe put some effort in there. Let me tell you this. We will never have enough assistance, help, and support to deal with all the issues that we deal with. So in whatever small capacity, large capacity, meaningful to you capacity that you can volunteer, get involved, donate, participate, roll up your sleeves, serve that food at that soup kitchen. The holidays are great opportunities for, at the very least, serving, And it's not just going out and serving that food on Christmas or Thanksgiving. Maybe there's support capacity, maybe your own personal skill sets and special talents can be brought to bear to help an organization. Whatever you do, this is a week of giving. Yesterday was Giving Tuesday. Step out, find out about whatever organization it is, local, neighborhood, larger, regional, and help, participate, because your help is amazingly appreciated, and your return for doing that?
Well, and as I was saying, it's a reciprocal benefit. It's why, and find something that's you're personally moved by and touched by. It's a lot of times it's like, okay, I cut my check, I feel good, and that's where that will stop if you're not personally tied to it. But what we've noticed, and Dan,
Sometimes that's actually an entry, and do you find that?
Right,
Sometimes
right.
that's
A
an
lot of
entry
times-
involvement with organizations.
right,
I write a check.
until you get some yes, and
And
then
then
suddenly
next
you
thing
get but you get some skin in the game, you get some sweat equity, and we were talking about this earlier. Is about an engagement where it goes from that check that you've written. Suddenly you've got an investment beyond just the support and the money, and of course the support hopefully will increase. But it's funny, while you were talking, I realized, and I was telling this to Dan the other day, I was up in Sacramento on an advocacy tour, and I was in a wonderfully friendly argument with Senator Morlock, and he said, well, you guys we've been discussing this for 7-8 years, you guys always seem to make the support happen. And I said, well, yes, because we go back and reinvent the wheel. But and I said, you continue to legislate up here, wanting the services up here, but you're budgeting down here. Yeah. So I said the services are now officially going away, and because we can't do it. And then what we have to turn from when the government is when the purse strings get tighter and tighter up there, we have to turn to people who are going to be engaged and support us as a result. And it's a magical coming together. We refer to it as the Project Independence family, that our clients, our donors, the extended family members are all part of it. But that's also just happened to be our support network. And it is truly a Project Independence family. So it same holds true for every nonprofit. They're out there trying to build that network that has more in the game than just financial support.
Right, and that change that I was talking about is not limited to us. It is across the board. I mean, everybody's feeling it. The last couple of years, the whole dynamic has changed, right?
So tell us how it's changed. I don't know that it's changed.
Well, Paul, before we do that, though, I do want to put out an invitation to everybody, whether you are a nonprofit. I know a lot of people that may be listening to this show. While we are on the air right now, if you're interested in sharing your own personal situation, celebrating certain victories, certain best practices, or if you want to just call and ask some questions of these gentlemen, please do so. And what's the number they can do that to, Paul?
Our official kvetch line. Or they can call up and kvetch.
1-800-KVETCH.
That's right. 949-888. Oh, no, that's not. I'm going to give another number. 949-330-7761. 949-330-7761. Operators ready to hear your complaint.
You know what I love about this is that we are absolutely a secular organization here because you've got an Irishman from the Midwest using Yiddish language and soliciting responses. On a rainy day in Orange County. I mean, it's just,
all fits
diversity, gone amok here. But yeah, if you guys would share some, because you're in the trenches. I mean, we're on the board level here, but
you said
Todd,
the other
you're
day,
dealing with it. You mean you're in Sacramento dealing with it?
We're in the trenches, and Dan, I'm going to let Dan chime in because Dan has represents other
different
nonprofits
perspectives
as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it's all very similar. We're trying. You have to. We're all in pursuit of the same purse strings, to be perfectly candid. And I think
Fishing
with that in mind,
the same ponds, yeah.
And is it a small group of people that contribute of the general population? What percentage? 1%, 2%, 100%, 50%?
I would love to guess.
That's an interesting stat to know. Obviously, as the numbers increase in terms of donation, the number of people donating will go down. But our feeling is if we can get more people engaged at even lower levels, it's still a large enough pool.
Well, we have,
and then they have influencers that they, in turn, can speak with.
But it's not only. I don't think it's only limited to the money. And here's what we're talking about right
sure,
now, right? Because
you
said something about being in Sacramento, right? I mean, you've got everybody basically pulling on your attention to basically advocate for some policy or for funds to be allocated. That's the same thing. It's not just donations and fundraising. It's also that side of it. Everybody is, hey, pay attention to me. Look at me. I represent an interest that requires your assistance, right?
Right. Oh, in the town, and at that point, that was an advocacy. It wasn't just for people with disabilities. It was there were all sorts of causes, to the point that I was in one of the first meetings, and we were going office to office, and And we started our little pitch, and I finally looked at the LA and I said, "Do you even know what we do?" And she says, "I haven't a clue. I'm just nodding politely." And I said, "Okay, let's regroup," because
You're independent. I don't need to worry about you.
Well, there you go. But
It's in your name, right?
And we
It's in your
reinvent the
name.
wheel. But I think going to your point, because I do want to be fair to your theme today, that the complexion of nonprofits is changing, and again, we talked about this earlier. That with that in mind, it's kind of exciting.
Is it a challenge or is it an opportunity?
There's always going to be challenges, and there's going to be new ones and old ones. Right. And as the old guard literally dies off, the old support base dies off. We're trying to fill that pipeline with young people who have philanthropy in mind, which is not naturally taught. But what we're doing is we're filling that
again, because you just threw that out rather casually. Do we not do a good job teaching our children to be kind and philanthropic, and to give back when the opportunity arises? Are we failing?
I'll tell you how it's happening.
Okay.
I'll be fair, because my daughters might be listening. I think we are doing a good job. I do think, though, we can certainly do a better job. But I think kids, and I'm not one of those who picks on the millennials, but the different generations that are younger than me, which is pretty much every generation, they want to be engaged. Mm-hmm. This is no longer, I remember my folks, every year they would sit down and they'd cut their check to United Way. And that happened to be their cause because they said, great, they'll put it in the proper place. The kids and their philanthropy now is like, I want to see the mission in play. I want to be engaged. I want to participate in the mission. And that's how we're going out, and that's how we're building our development network, and we're refilling the pipeline.
And that's a very important differentiator, because Paul's question eluded or was almost trying to fish for the fact that, those darn kids. The kids, we were more philanthropic and more engaged, and these kids are we not teaching them how to basically care? And your answer,
it's just the opposite.
I was about to add the layer, and you just took it right. You answered it for me. Is just the opposite. It's the fact that their form of engagement and the way they want to participate may be different from the past generation. Yes. And that's not fair, because we're being very, very generalizing here. But they need to be engaged. You can't just engage them with a boilerplate template. You actually have to know your audience.
Oh, and you talk about engagement. And Dan, I'm sorry, I'll let you jump in, but
he always says that.
I never do. It's a.
We put a mic in front of him, Dan. It's toast. I mean, you might as well just leave and come back.
The mic
between him and Paul.
The mic doesn't. The mic
you know what? This
work.
is the Paul and Todd show. No, I wanted to say that we have some wonderful partners, part of the Project Independence family, from places like Cal State Fullerton and UCI, who are calling us and saying, we see the mission in play, how can we participate? And that's brilliant, because that's playing the long ball that we talked about. If you're truly going to play the long ball with your mission, which 42 years into the game, obviously we are, we want to start developing that now. And we have them come, they volunteer for our walk, they come in, they do internships with us, they engage our...
Well, some of the more enlightened companies, Experian is a good example.
Let's give some shout-outs to the people that basically make are partners with us in that, Dan.
Well, we'll probably have to rope Experian into Project Independence, but in general, they have a program where employees get dollars to give to a nonprofit for as much time as they donate to that nonprofit. So that nonprofit gets that person to do whatever task, and then also gets a check.
Yeah,
so I think it's a very enlightened way to approach it. And so the more companies that we
unlike
can find
just trying
like
to collect money and say, here, as a big chunk, we raise this money.
Yeah, because the employee is demonstrating his
Social
interest
consciousness,
and social consciousness, and then the capper on that is, here's a check at whatever rate they determine for that nonprofit to receive.
So if you put in the effort, we'll reward that as a company.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of them do it as a straight match, which a lot of people who are listening to this will realize that their company does, or may not realize and need to ask. We have some monthly donors who, at the end of the year, their total is matched by PayPal does it, Apple's doing it, and Uber. Believe it or not. So
so please check with your companies if you are employed by a corporation, that they more likely will have a program of some sorts.
It's very exciting to say, okay, I'm going to send you $20 a month, and that's $40 a month. That's
in some cases, companies will actually let that person work, quote unquote, at that nonprofit
Yes.
as part of their work
There's their
week.
sweat equity.
Well, I mean, and it's smart,
Yeah.
and I think it's
So it's not their extra time or their evening time.
but it's smart corporate, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
actually you are enhancing the work environment and experience of your employee, and you're supporting what is important to them, and it really is not at an expensive cost to you. It's like it's actually it builds morale, it builds engagement,
retains
and
employees longer.
retainment, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, it's a feel-good thing. There's actually genuine benefit to everybody involved.
I was going to mention Giving Tuesday. I guess that rolled out from Black Friday and then Small Business Saturday.
Monday and
so
Small Business
Cyber
Saturday.
Monday. So people had that a continuum of opportunity. So
Waste
just,
of time Wednesday if you're listening to the Raad Life.
well, yeah, now it's just relax.
So where is the struggle? So far, you told me, okay, millennials are more engaged than we want to give them credit for, and the companies.
Well, part of the
particularly tech
challenge,
companies
part of
are-
the challenge is engaging that newer generation.
I mean, has
think,
the
at
law
that point.
changed or something? Are there other obstacles that have
I
arrived?
think, and I
Resources.
speak now. I'm going to speak very regionally because Project Independence does not have a national footprint. We are Orange County centric, and that is us. And this is a very,
But
very
that's by conscious choice, though, right?
yes. We used to we had a broader reach. We were down in San Diego, and we said we cannot really do this justice. The mission has to stay in Orange
Again,
County,
part
which
of
is
the
plenty.
part of the
If you think of this,
organization's strategy in this particular case.
correct.
be
But
localized.
with that said, it's a very, very expensive place. So we have a remarkable staff of over 120 people who are trying to do this compassionate work, but do it on a very, very limited salary, and that's very, very difficult because they're commuting in from Corona or wherever they can have a quality of life, but they want to come down here and do the work. That's a huge commute, or to live here is very expensive, and to do it on that income is almost impossible.
Yeah.
So a
And
lot of them
recruitment
have
is
to-
one of our biggest issues.
So therein lies recruitment issues, and that.
Can I give you a hint? Can I give you an idea?
Paul,
Since we're going to
you're
throw
holding
something
up
on
a
it?
cue card, but I wasn't reading it.
This show's about aging. We talk all the time that there are a large number of people, my wife is one of them, who have now been either laid off or told that you're done because you're 69 or we're
Wait,
67.
are you
or-
submitting an application for
I
your
might,
wife right now?
right.
Is this your resume? Or am I looking at
Because there are people like her who are not done working, would like to contribute, don't need to make the salaries they once made because they have some savings or retirement or just Social Security. And I wonder if there isn't a population of seniors who are not 80, but who are 65 to say 75 that still have a lot of skills that would love to work and would do so for less pay and live here already. How about that?
Paul just solved it. Did you
I
take
did.
notes, Dan? Because honestly, I'm not being facetious. That is we've talked about that. There's a demographic that is sitting there. There is a labor pool.
Yeah.
And we've discussed that, and we're just trying to tap into it. Maybe with our new board member,
Yeah.
Brad will.
Maybe
Well, I'll
Brad
give
will-
you my wife's example. Okay, my wife was a branch manager for 20 years.
Very smart, Paul.
It's a
Yeah,
great-
actually,
it's a
good
great-
point.
And she
Yeah,
was
yeah.
comment.
she was and then she went into auditing, and her whole department got laid off. She's 69, and they basically all slapped her on the back, said, "Well, it's time for you to retire." And she's like, "Well, but I like working, and I'm in good health, and what else?
Feel
am
productive.
I feel productive. I don't want to sit home and watch TV. I don't play golf. What am I going to do?" And she's been going out of her mind this last 6 months trying to figure out what to do with herself. And so you volunteer and you go down and do some meaningless at the shelter. She cleans the litter boxes or something here, but something that could really utilize her organizational people skills that she honed in 30 years of banking. She has not found a way. She can go work at Walmart and be a cashier, but that's not what she's looking
This
for.
would be certainly more rewarding and
More meaningful.
in many ways.
Yeah, she doesn't need the money.
You know
like
what?
she
You know
did.
what the irony of this conversation is, Paul. Right? What did you do a couple of years ago? You went through the same dynamic.
reinvented
you
myself,
reinvented
yeah.
yourself. That's funny.
Because we're not done.
Plus, his wife
at
was going to kill him if
60.
he stayed at home.
Yeah.
Well, that as well. I'm sure.
We're not done at 60 or even 70 anymore. Here, many of us are going to want. We'd like to get some extra money, yes, and even more so. What do we do? This notion that you stop everything at 65
Well,
or
you're
70.
also describing, and Paul, that is a brilliant suggestion, and we need to
Definitely
readdress
we'll
it,
address it,
because we've been trying to find where's labor pool. Well, that labor pool, for the most part, has their housing figured out. The income.
Yeah, they're not moving out of their
yeah.
houses. They bought them
Yeah.
at a very low
They're
cost.
not anticipating little babies
Exactly.
coming into
and,
the world.
And I think to your point is
brilliant,
that
actually.
we are, as I was arguing with Morlock, we're having to continue to reinvent the wheel, and that's a great direction to go, because the temptation is to go, how can we get maybe these kids who are still in school, but then their hours don't lend themselves to
Right.
24/7 gigs. So
And they're going to leave when they get
Yes.
something
Yeah.
Well,
bigger and
the,
better.
the,
And
the,
as soon
import,
as-
the importance of having these conversations. I mean, here's a show that we've been doing for 4.5 years that is sort of loosely connected to aging. And we talk about encore careers, and we talk about all the skill set
this
that's
is
out there, right?
Encore career. Let's
right,
steal that.
right? And seniorpreneurs is another one, right? But I mean, there's financial
White Panthers.
Yeah, there's financial. I'm
White
just gonna.
hair.
I'll come back to that. Okay, Gray, not gray, silver, but white. You went white right away. So I mean, that's kind of a little racist.
Yeah, not,
Okay.
in no sense.
Let's go silver. But the thing about it is, here we are, and we all pride ourselves on thinking outside the box. And until Paul said what he said, I didn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
That's potential, pool
There
for
are
us
a
to tap
ton of
into.
people
Well,
like
and it
my
goes-
wife
it
out
goes-
there.
Well, the
Yeah.
importance of having these conversations.
And I'll bring it back to the theme of the day, is that it's every nonprofit is in a perpetual state. The mission might stay the same, but they're reinventing themselves on how they generate support for that. So that's where we are, and this is a perfect example of that. Going, let's regroup and send ourselves to the whatever.
I'll give you 3 other
Because
characteristics.
Silver
all
Panthers.
the money in the world that you can drive into an organization, to be honest, right? Unless you have the boots on the ground or the ability
Right.
to have capacity,
There are
you cannot
plenty
deliver.
of people we can't help because we don't have sufficient hands.
Capacity.
So think of this.
Well, and
the-
we hate, and I have to plug this. We
Yeah.
hate wait lists. When there are people who need our services, it truly beats us up that we're
Almost
leaving
a
money
sense-
on the
it's
table
also-
that we get reimbursed for, because
Right.
we are reimbursed through the regional centers, which is
So think of I'll give you 4 or 5 characteristics of this group. 1, they're bored out of their mind, and they still want to contribute. They grew up in an era where work was important, so they're generally
work ethic.
They got a real strong work ethic. They work very hard. They're not looking to leave 6 months for a better opportunity or someplace else. They've already got their housing taken care of because they bought it 20, 30 years ago and probably have it paid off by now or mostly down. And they're willing to work for less. They've got a lot of skills, and they're willing to work for less, partly because they have some other savings, and partly because they want to keep going. And
You realize you just described our demographic.
yeah, exactly.
Sending a sense of purpose, a sense of independence,
Our
camaraderie.
actually our clients.
Yeah.
Those are
Too,
our clients,
yeah.
and those are and the aging is the same thing. So
Exactly.
here's a greater. Here we've just
They
solved
match,
it. Oh my
right.
gosh!
So let's talk about a couple of other challenges while we still have time. So obviously, there's sort of the capacity building and the employment potential, right, for recruiting, and we kind of just addressed as a possible solution here, or at least thinking out the importance of thinking outside the box and reinventing. I mean, most people think of a nonprofit as being this sort of archaic organizational structure that's been around for 40 years and continues to do the same thing over and over and over. But out of sheer necessity, we are constantly having to reinvent. I don't know one nonprofit that succeeds over time that does not have to do that almost on an ongoing basis, because the dynamics and the resources change all the time. Right? Grants get denied that you counted on. You are constantly having to be there. I mean, it's the closest thing I know to an entrepreneur that's basically, bootstrapping it, honestly, sometimes, right? So what are some of the other challenges that we're talking about here, guys? And maybe we can explore some solutions.
Well, we talked a bit about messaging. How is it that you can differentiate
The
yourself
importance of messaging.
from the other nonprofits?
Yeah.
And I think that's a
how
real
you-
challenge. Dan's in PR. I was in PR. Now I'm in the other side of it, media. It's harder than ever, I would guess, to get your message through the noise. 1, because there is so much noise, and there are so many other nonprofits. And 2, because traditional media has dried up or disappeared. There were 3 or 4 places. It might have been hard to get a story in the register, but if you did, everybody read it. Now, even if you get in there, only a handful of people. It's more disseminated, so it's harder to get that message out in one quick fashion.
And you can do it with formula. I mean,
Right.
you that's the other thing too, is because you have to identify the unique value proposition of your mission, and then look for unique ways to highlight it that you can own basically that space in, so that you can continue to not bore people with your message and don't hit them up all the time. We were talking about how many times before somebody gets turned off on donating, right? There are certain facts that we can take into consideration, but the messaging, Dan, I mean, it's super critical, right?
Well, yeah, if you're not instantly appealing to someone, they're going to move on to the next offer that they're seeing. Giving Tuesday is just a great example because
Boom, boom.
I, for one,
boom,
there
boom.
were so many filling up my
Me
my
too, yeah.
email, all of whom have wonderful missions and they do great things. So,
But it made me kind
I
of
was
shut
look-
down. I didn't go through and pick
Well,
one.
yeah, as guilty as you may
went through
feel,
the-
they still went to spam.
yeah,
I mean,
or
I
you look
think
at
you've-
the content that they present you, and then you decide. I mean, it's like within a few seconds whether you're going to click onto something if it's appealing.
right.
I
So
think
if it,
you've got to be.
yeah.
I think we have the toolbox called social media. As I've noticed with nonprofits, you've gotten. You almost have to be more surgical. We've tremendous corporate partners. We have the 66 employers of Trader Joe's and Home Depot, and Union Bank's a big supporter of us, and High Times Liquor. All these folks who step up but. The reason they are engaged is because they have people, our clientele working for them, or they have a niece, or they have a daughter who happens to have Down syndrome. Whatever it is you have to be surgical. You have to find what is that tie-in. Otherwise, you're just more the white noise.
The personal
or
engagement.
silver noises.
I mean, let me just run through a couple of scenarios. So you're sitting at your desk, minding your own business. You don't even know that there's such a thing called Giving Tuesday, and then you're checking your emails on a regular basis, and here comes an email saying Giving Tuesday, and you go, what is this Giving Tuesday? It's like, I know Taco Tuesday, but what's this Giving Tuesday thing? So I open it and I look at it. Oh, interesting. I take the time to read it. Hopefully it's a short enough email that doesn't bore me about, the second paragraph down, and I basically shut off. Okay? Maybe there's an image. Maybe I get emotionally invested in the image a little bit, if it's correct image versus stock imagery, right? Mm-hmm. No, I turn it off. Okay, that's cool. I'll come back to it, maybe consider getting involved. Now I get 4 other emails that are titled in the subject matter, Giving Tuesday. When do I stop looking at the emails, right?
Once you get to Project Independence.
Well, but it doesn't say Project Independence in the first 3 letters of the subject matter, is my point, right?
Oh yeah,
So can I give you
clever?
I'll give you another perspective.
So you need to be strategic, and you need to be surgical. But more importantly, how do you then do that with an authenticity that engages people and keeps their attention? Because you're right. When you say I got to get their attention, yeah, you got to get their attention. But if what you get in getting their attention is not a positive reaction.
Yeah, but you're also getting a Giving Day one-off, which I don't want to detract from a 24-hour campaign. That's great. If you've wowed somebody, you've impacted them. But more often than not, people will support on an ongoing basis, which is really where the money is.
Right.
And that is because they were impacted on an ongoing basis. They have a personal tie to it. And
Or
if you
somebody
don't-
who's asking
so
them
let
to
me give
consider
you-
it
Yeah,
as a
and then you
personal.
can build a
Paul has to
rapport.
plug his wife.
I'm going to give you. No, I'm not going to plug my wife. I'll give you a plug
Okay,
for what
fine.
we
We'll
do.
set up an interview already. Jeez.
Here's my and seriously, I see this dilemma all the time. Everybody's asking for money. Money. Give me money. We'll match the money. We need the money. Desperate. And tell me the 47,000 reasons you can do with the money here. But nobody, it goes back to what you said. It goes back to content. It goes back to engagement. It goes back to personal stories. Tell me more of the Big Todd stories, and I'm connected. If I don't know a Big Todd.
Big Ben.
Big Ben. I'm sorry, Big
I kind of
Todd.
like that Big Todd thing.
No, I know.
like that
You're
You're like a
smiling
big
over
Todd.
I
there.
see a new campaign.
It's not the kind of show we're having today.
If I don't already have a direct connection because of a cousin, a friend, a relative, or somebody that I work with or know here, create that connection by telling me their story. Don't just tell me the need and ask me for money. The thing that drives me crazy about charities is once you give once, you're on a list, and they just milk it until you say enough.
Hey, look, we were walking up to the studio, right? And I was a Bernie supporter last time, and I don't know which way I'm going to vote this time. I don't necessarily have any, animosity towards Bernie. I'm considering him as just like everybody else. But, dude, people, and I'm not talking Bernie. When you keep hitting me up with a text message for donation about 2 or 3 times a week, for any and every reason, at some point I mute the friggin' messaging, right? And it doesn't matter if you're texting it, hey buddy, or I'm not sure if you know, but
Or
hey,
we're desperate.
but that's just that's
Or
not
we're
getting my
desperate
attention.
to- yeah,
There's no
right.
authenticity there anymore.
Yeah.
I think you've got to tell real stories. and tell how you're impacting people, not just the need and not just how desperate you are for the money.
But again,
Yeah.
but again, you are talking about telling, and I think I can tell you, I can have an impactful photo, I can have this stuff, but we want to play the long ball. We want this game to continue, and I'll give you a quick example. A few years ago, we used to have a program at Project Independence called Access to Adventure, which was activities beyond work and places to live and roommates and support.
Excursions
in that
on
sense.
boats.
Stuff that we were reimbursed for through the state. It was Access to Adventure was everything from bowling to excursions and hiking and all sorts of fun stuff, climbing mountains. And so we've reestablished it because what we realized is that we need to offer this to the public, not just to our clients, but we need to offer it to the public because it was such a tactile mission in play. And we've done indoor skydiving, we do outrigger canoeing, we take them to Catalina
It was an
Island.
experience that they
It's
rather
the
than
story you're talking about. It's saying, wow, look at, and just the utter joy, but it is the mission in action. And those stories are so impactful. We established it very selfishly because we wanted to show the public, this is what we do. It's great. I'm glad that, you encountered them.
don't just read it, experience it,
Yes.
live it.
And then what we make an effort to reach out to people in the community to say, come and participate, help us, go to Catalina Island, and Island Conservancy steps up for us as well. So it's to Paul's point, it's show it in action, tell an impactful story, and just engage.
And I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna give this website. It's BrittonFord.com, BRITTEN Ford FORD.com. It's a blog, and basically you can do a search on Google to top 7 challenges for nonprofit organizations in 2018. It's not 2019, 2018, but there was a major change in the tax and some of the regulations that happened, right? And I'm just going to read the list of the 7 challenges, okay? The number 1 challenge for nonprofits in 2018. Top financial priorities, top financial challenges for nonprofits. It talks about the challenges due to tax code changes, regulations, donors, change in demographics, the connectivity of the respondents of the demographic, the messaging we're talking about. We touch on the fact that, how do you appeal to millennials versus maybe prior donor bases. All of these things are things that everybody's challenged by, right? We touched on the employment. Todd, you talked about the cost of living and the pool that you're drawing on for basically recruiting and how that becomes an issue. Paul, thank you very much for that input, because I think that's a brilliant suggestion for us to look into.
There's a group ready to work for you guys for the wages you're offering that already lives here and has figured out how to.
Well, it's a group.
I'm laughing because we've talked about this at board meetings for 2 years now, and I've said I think there is a built-in workforce that would just be, and also match our mission beautifully, because the joy and the enthusiasm that they would bring to it, and that's what our staff has in spades.
And let's not forget that that's a group of people that may not need to have the higher salary, but having some financial gain coming out of this as in terms of employment is a benefit to them, because they are also facing their own financial changes.
Right, they're not looking just to volunteer. That's the other extreme.
It's that sweet spot between full volunteering and actually full
part-time.
employment.
Right.
So that's great. So let's talk about this impact on our clients. From the cost of living side.
Impact my mic.
Because our costs are higher to achieve certain things, right?
I continued your point because
my point is this, right? The mission, like in any other case of nonprofit, with their need, it doesn't get smaller. The need is bigger. We're always
and the costs go up. Is that
and
what
the
you're
costs
saying?
are going up, especially in a place that is like Orange County, like the cost of housing, the cost of things, it goes up, right? So is that something that's also a detriment for us to be able to fulfill our mission? Is this something that, like for the Board of Supervisors and things like that, are aware of? Because the services are going to have to continue to be offered.
Yeah, well, you alluded to that, Todd, because we're set at certain rates, but the
That's where I'm
cost
going
of
then, yeah.
living
Yeah.
goes up, and we're not being matched with that.
To provide an hour of service, we often we have a couple of lost leaders where it's to our mission, we need to provide the service, but we go in the hole on it. So it truly is
Like what? Like what would be an example of that?
in fairness to our clients and the service, I'm not going to really say which ones lose money, but we're a
Some of the
complete
things
pie.
you do, it costs you
Well,
money.
Dan's salary puts
Well,
us in the hole
yeah.
big time.
Well,
because
you know.
there's no services
It's
offered.
huge.
And you'd think he'd talk more when he's on the
Volunteer.
show, right?
Yeah.
Volunteer.
Earn your keep. I will say though that there is a point, and hopefully this isn't a segue. To the wonders of science, the reason the Lanterman Act established these services to adults with developmental disabilities over the age of 22 is because the life expectancy for the longest while was into the 20s for a lot of our client base. We're outliving their support, which was their family.
Yeah.
And suddenly these parents are going, oh my gosh, you
What am I gonna
supported
do?
us. Yeah, I want this program. That's where we have to stay viable. We have to stay and find that support.
That really is a reality. There's a woman in our church here who has a severely disabled daughter that she brings with her all the time here. And
Who will serve her?
who will serve her
Well,
when
how's,
she
how's,
dies?
how's that lady, that daughter, going to be housed? Who's going to be,
Well,
like?
that's what we do. I mean, that's why it kills us to think.
This lady's got to be
us-
my age, got to be in her mid
Right, but-
60s or 70s.
And a lot of
now.
our clients are 50, 60, 70 years
Todd,
old.
what I'm trying to allude to is, excuse me, and I'm going to use the homeless issue that's a big issue in Orange County right now in terms of housing as an example, because that is a showcased effort right now to provide housing for homeless, right?
And then what?
Right, exactly. What happens?
Yeah.
And then in our case, excuse me, our clients are not homeless, but we also need to house them in a manner that is affordable housing, that there's resources that are made available. And when you have competing interests such as spot zoning, repurposing of development, taking areas that potentially could provide that kind of option and now basically looking at them as for profit, whether it's at the supervisor level, whether it's the county level or the city level, the priorities are competing, right? And when you have situations where affordable housing becomes, for example, in lieu of for developers to the city, and then the city doesn't then go ahead and basically provide that affordable housing, it's not just affordable housing. There are people like our clients that we need to have a viable option.
Yes. But again, you're proving our earlier point
Right.
is that we're in a constant state of reinventing ourselves, and that's
Right.
what our government is doing, and they're doing it. They could do it better, but they're doing it, and we're doing it with them. And I'll give you a
Well, we're
perfect
all
example.
challenged by it. It's not just
a
us.
few years ago, we finally had
too.
we have a government office housed in Project Independence called WIPA, which is Work Incentive. What is it? I always forget this acronym. Work Incentives, Planning, and Assistance. And they've suddenly realized that to house this in a government office was not nearly as efficient as tossing it into the office of the boots on the ground. And so we have 3 people on staff there who just help people negotiate their benefits, not just our client base, but we have this government office within our office. And that was a brilliant reinvention on the government's part. They said this will be more efficient, which is absolutely true. So as you're alluding to, is we're all doing this together, and as the demographics change, we're constantly having to change the formula too in our model. And so even though we've been around 42 years, part of the reason we've stayed fairly nimble and built our model differently.
So talk about that there for a second before you get off this. I hadn't thought about this. Rad mentioned earlier, is the need growing? If for no other reason, the need's growing because the population
Is just living longer.
Is living longer.
Which is a good thing. That's a problem to have.
It's a good thing,
Right.
but these people aren't dying at 20 with these severe disabilities. They might be
Right.
dying at 50, 60, 70 or whatever, and they're outliving the family that took care of them.
Absolutely. It's a tragedy in one sense. Yeah.
But I mean, I read something about maybe 6 months ago where, because of that exact thing, because people with special needs are basically are living longer, in some cases, as children, they are cared for in the confines of their own home, the parental household. They are able to basically be supported by that family, maybe support system, right? In that case, now that the parents are getting older and they're looking at their own mortality,
Right.
They are genuinely concerned, and how do they better position their assets, their resources to better protect their children as their children now basically become seniors.
Well,
and there are places that, sorry, Todd, there are places literally looking at like board and care.
right.
Assisted living.
As assisted living, but specifically for that population, not for an aging population per se, because you're getting older, but because there's special needs that are living longer.
Well, and we work, and that's what we do. We
Yeah.
work in conjunction with the state to make sure that we're serving that. And as that population ages, and a lot of what we need to do, and we need to do it better, is to reach to their support base, to our client support base, their family, and we have planned giving, and we have estate planning, where we say they want to make sure, very selfishly, they want to make sure that their son, daughter is going to continue to be served. The Project Independence is still around, and many of the other contractors to the regional center is around, is viable, so they know that becomes a support base for their clients and continues to be that way. So there again, that goes back to our development model.
And it's not. I'm going to be clear. I'm not talking about housing. So you basically
You're
put them
talking
in
about the whole picture.
I'm talking about
Right.
the fact that is a component of the independence. In order to be able to provide the independence, these are some of the ingredients that have to be put in place somehow creatively to make that possible, because these are productive members of society that are basically out there giving of themselves to their work environment, to their society around them, whether they're volunteering or they're working. And so we're not just putting them away, is what I'm saying. The housing is just a component that makes that independence possible.
Certainly in our model.
In
we
our
want people
model
to
with
be
Project Independence.
as independent as
So
they
one
can
of the
be.
thing you keep alluding to, like we all know, Rod mentioned it again when he listed that thing from the blog. Somehow the laws of giving have changed, or the tax benefits have changed. If they are, I'm totally unaware of that.
The tax benefits have changed. They've actually, I don't know what the threshold is, but it was heavily increased in the last year, and so we don't. In fact, we had to just to give too much away. Normally, you get a big wave at the end of the year because you get a big tax benefit, but people aren't getting that tax benny as much. So it's our end of the year campaign is less. There's less of a thrust there. It's really a 12-month.
So I'm still lost. What did they do? Raise the threshold
Where you can write something off, and I don't know tax law, but I know that a lot of our big donors have said, well, I'll give it to you in March.
Was that an intended part of the tax reform plan, or an unintended part of it? Were they trying to get people to give more, or did they give less?
Dan, do you know the answer to that?
I would think it wouldn't be that.
I've done questioning.
That they
this.
somehow was something unintended, because that's not something I've ever heard about.
Well, it changed the dynamic of asking, Paul, is what I think the point is.
For me,
Right.
for us, it's changed the dynamic of tax. But you're asking the tax question. I don't know.
Any other rules or regulations that have made it harder or easier to raise money or for charities to survive?
That's all. Those are questions. Do your next show on.
We'll bring in a tax attorney
yeah,
that
and I will
specializes.
listen to that.
I mean,
nonprofits.
because there is a move. There's always a battle. You mentioned John Morlock. I assume he's more for less government and for less government. More
Big
people.
supporter of mental health and our mission, though. We love the man.
So again, that's been part of the debate about who pays for this. Do we do we step up charities and churches and ask them to fill in that role, or does government have an increasing role in?
Let me read you this. Okay, so this is from that link that I said. Okay, so a common concern both inside and outside nonprofit world is the impact of changing regulations and tax reform, from the paper-cutting maneuvers by the Trump administration to the largest change in the tax code in more than 3 decades. Nonprofits are working diligently to adapt, but face challenges doing so, with 18.8% listing government regulations as their top challenge. Okay, among the biggest questions: 1, will the increase in the standard deduction reduce the likelihood that individuals donate, or will it help the economy enough to increase donations? 2, will changes in regulation and legislation, with changes in regulations and legislation, will we be able to bill for services and receive the same funding as we used to? Beyond the regulatory environmental effects, many of the other top challenges. There are many other challenges as well: organizational growth, revenue funding, fundraising concerns, and then, like I said, staffing and volunteer challenges.
But Paul, that poses your question back to you: is will those bennies cause people to donate more? I think we know the answer to that, and it's discouraging.
Yeah.
So again, we just regroup and we
they raised the standard deduction considerably.
Yeah.
So therefore, I don't have to.
So you don't reap the reward for making a donation.
Yeah, so
to
you don't
Project
see a
Independence.
financial incentive.
Interesting.
So you have to have an emotional incentive.
Yeah.
Don't
right.
get me started on the fallacy we call trickle down.
Well, and then
Well,
the
you and me
yeah.
both there.
I
Right.
know you're
Right. So
doing it.
that answers your question, Paul. Is that these are challenges that across the board
Yep.
when it comes to that, right? So again, now not only are you competing in the same fishing hole,
Right.
but you're now competing more aggressively in the same
Yes, for
fishing
the-
hole,
for a
and
smaller
the noise
fishing-
is getting louder, and everybody's saying the same stuff.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time. I'm not saying that it is.
Well, and keep
it's
in
only
mind
challenges, there's opportunities in there too.
Somebody somebody said, "What is your goal as a philanthropist?" And really the world we're headed toward is I want to be without a job. I want philanthropy no longer to be needed. We should be serving these people. The cost should be covered. These people should have the services they need and be done with it.
No, I think
I
anybody-
shouldn't be out there saying you need to donate so I can continue to provide these services that you've legislated. It's disappointing, and that's the ultimate goal. And in the meantime, we just keep.
See, that's an interesting take, right? That's an interesting thing which we don't talk about
That is
often,
very-
right?
yeah,
is
really.
that these services, like the senior focused services that the city is supposed to provide, okay, that the state and the county say that they are basically in
Right.
support of. Those are legislated services. Those are
But they are not
promises
budgeted.
Yeah, there's
made
no money for them,
through
yeah.
policy and advocacy at the governmental level.
Right.
But it's not enough to just say that, because now you got to find a way to support
Right,
and make
but
it
understand,
possible.
and I'm going to be overly corny here, but we as constituents, we need to put on our big boy pants. And if we're going to hold, you can hold your elected official accountable and say, well, no, we want to hear one thing, but we only want to pay another thing. So it's if you genuinely
That's the
need-
problem, isn't it? We all want to do
Well, it
good,
is.
but we
So
don't. Nobody
it
wants
really
to pay
comes
for
down
it.
to us. So if you don't want me banging on you 3 and 4 times a week for a donation to Project Independence, then okay. If you want these services, you want these services provided. You've asked us to provide them. You've voted them in. You've said, and you've had elected officials put them in place. Then I won't. But if you budget accordingly, if you let us tax it, you accordingly.
Yeah, but you know what, Todd? What you're describing is a very funny phenomenon that we all know when we sit on boards of nonprofits, is that you are by law required to be open to the public, right? If you're a 501c3, there's a component of your board meetings that are public sessions, right? And so
Please, come.
people come in.
Yeah.
And-
I
no,
did-
but
I
people,
didn't know that. I did not know
You
that.
go into closed session, but there's because you're a public entity, you have to basically provide for that. So let's say you are not. For argument's sake, we have a membership base, okay, that supports you, like the Historical Society in San Clemente, for example. Part of our board meetings had to be open to the public.
Does anybody come?
Yeah, people do sometimes, right? But the funny thing is, people will come, and if they have a grievance, they will basically, and this happens also with board members, by the way. I'm not picking on anybody or this organization particularly, but you will sit there, and I hear this all the time. And when I was president of the Historical Society, I had a way of dealing with it, which was not necessarily the nicest way of doing it, but it was effective. And basically, what you do is you
Used to carry a big saber. I thought.
no,
that's an all nother-
nor a scimitar. Don't even go there, right? But the thing about it was that people will out of genuine interest will say, hey, you know what we should do? And they'll basically continue to recite what we should do. And then they will sit back. And that was their part. They did their part. They
They give you an
That's the stuff
assignment.
from
we
Never
voted that we should
Yeah.
provide services as a community, and we made that the effort, the responsibility of our elected officials to put it into rules and regulations. But God, I feel so good about this. I'm done with this. I can move on now, right? And what I used to do when I was sitting in that chair is I'd say, you know what? Hold on a second. Let me write this down. Okay, that's awesome. So, are you volunteering to lead the effort on this? No. I was just bringing it up. Okay, great. Anybody else want to take this on and basically take leadership on it? No. Okay, all right. I'll tell you what. We're going to keep this on the piece of paper. And when somebody actually puts their hand up to take care of it, we will then basically make it part of our policy. But you raise a very important point. There's whether it's guilt-driven, whether it's I feel genuinely we need to do something. Okay, you can't just basically volunteer what the idea is. You have to basically roll up your sleeves and get involved. Make sure that not only the idea, but what it takes to support it is in place, and that you are involved with it. Otherwise, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
I just want
Just to feel good.
I just want to write a check and be done with it.
Well,
We'll take your check.
We'll take your check too.
Yeah.
We'll take your wife as an employee. We'll take your check.
If you could,
do you have a pickup and a dog? We'll take those too.
That's right.
I think you guys are identifying problems that most of us don't even think of. I didn't think that there was any impact to the tax changes. I didn't think that this population's living longer. I didn't think, I guess I realized costs and stuff are going up. I didn't realize that these services are mandated in many cases by cities. They insist somebody do it, but then they don't fully fund them. All of these are things that, why aren't these on the front page of something here? Why is this all shocking me? Why is this not something I've ever thought about?
You get enough, what would you call the older folks that are angry?
Well, I used to say we were hippies, and then we turned into yuppies. Now we're poopies. We're pissed off old people. Yeah.
Yeah, you have enough pissed off old people that vote basically get pissed off. You'll start seeing it on the front page of the newspaper, especially in communities that are aging, right? Like Orange County.
Yeah.
But it's true, right? We all have senior centers. We're all going to provide these services to our aging population. That's not working. They're tired. That's not buying, right? So there's no retail taxes that are coming into the community because we have a community that's aging. They're not leaving their homes because they're basically that's their equity. That's how they're going to live out their lives, right? Is the equity built into their houses that they bought at a good price. They're not moving, so there's no sales tax adjustments going on, right, based on market value. There's no retail taxes coming in. The places are expensive, so you don't have young people that are working.
The services to
They can afford them, right.
They can afford them staying there, and basically payroll taxes are going out of the community. But you have to provide for an increasingly aging community all these services that you said you were going to provide.
Well, and I think,
Where's the economic engine? Real
So
estate,
what's-
you're built out.
So
Now what are
what's
you going to
the
do?
problem?
Right.
Yeah, what's the problem? Come on.
Go to war, I guess.
Yeah, right. Well,
You're still not going to get rid of the older population.
because they won't join. And
I think the
won't sign
problem
up.
is that you guys are more comfortable with poopies rather than White Panthers.
That's it. That's the deal.
No, that's Paul. That's Paul's thing, and I give full credit to Paul. But no, we are. You're right, Paul. We're identifying issues that are right there. They're just under the surface, right? It does not take more than a
Nobody's
5-minute
talking about
conversation,
them, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you got to basically be willing to engage with that because the alternative is not a sustainable position long term.
will we ever get to the and I worry about this, not just with your population, but with homeless, with all sorts of issues, where we just, as a society, say, I don't know, I give up, and we give up on trying to help them. The government doesn't fund them. People don't volunteer as much or do it for whatever reasons, tax benefits, overwhelmed, burned out, tuned out, don't hear the message, whatever it is, and where these populations suddenly rise because this pendulum swings back and we just, everybody on their own.
I think
dystopian,
too much
bleak.
history of reinventing ourselves, as we've done at Project Independence, as corporations continue to do. We're a lot more nimble than that.
Well, but I think what Paul identified is a pretty bleak reflection on the human condition. I mean, what you basically identified is, yes, a viable and possible scenario, and it probably exists and has always existed to a certain degree. But I choose to believe that there's a nobility to the human spirit that also shines in moments of challenge. And whether it is on a small impact of your neighbor, or whether it's a bigger impact on your street or your community, there will be people that will stand out. Now, it's becoming more harder and harder to do so, including running for office, for example, because now you subject your whole family and everybody you care about to basically the lambasting that is not limited even to public outcry during forums, but also on social media 24/7, right? Justified or otherwise. There will be people that will still, thank God, stand up and basically be willing to help and serve. And that includes nonprofits that will take on a unsurmountable challenge and try to do that. Because there is the human spirit in its down to the core nature, I have to believe, has a sense of duty and responsibility to be I am my brothers and sisters' keeper.
Well,
I think I can be a little more Pollyanna than that, because I look at our staff members who are just amazingly compassionate and overworked and underpaid, and when I'm out in the field with them, I'm just stunned. I'm going, why do they do this? Why do they work this hard? Why? It's just because they're the smart ones. They know that, again, overusing my term reciprocal benefit, they know they're getting as much out of it, if not more, than the client is being served. It's amazing to me. It truly is amazing. And I think the people who run for office, the people who step up, the people who do serve, understand it is now belongs to them because they've given it back. I truly believe that.
Well, you know,
the gremlins are tapping somewhere.
Yeah, is that your arm on the table?
Somebody's tapping or doing something.
I think it's Dan.
I haven't known.
Would you
just raised your hands.
Would you
and
have
you stopped.
rain effect? My hands are not on the table.
Something.
You have rain effect, but you know, it is important to actually even think about it that way, like to be a devil's advocate, if you will, and consider that, because if we take for granted that those people are basically involved and providing those services,
well, isn't that the danger of the
we lose
politics?
touch with that, and
isn't that the danger of politics these days? That too many people who are just saying, "The heck with everything! I quit! I give up!" The noise, the nastiness, the never-ending change.
I don't think-
and more and more
I
people
don't
But
are
think-
understand
opting
that the voting populace, though, and here we go off the subject, but the voting populace is forcing our elected officials, instead of, we fault them for not performing, and yet we sit there and we force them into a 24/7. When the minute they get there, they have to start running for re-election,
Yeah,
and
right.
it's a shame we don't allow them to
do
build
the
a better
job that,
system
yeah.
and
I agree.
to represent us well. So that's on us.
Right.
That's on us. And then we become reactive, and we're running after the shiny penny constantly, as the last 3 years has proven. So
Well, Rad was saying, like on a very local level at San Clemente City Council, it's real easy to stand out and shout and say,
Yep.
"You're a bum, you're terrible," and then you get in there and you got to somehow compromise and
Yes.
work, and then you're a sellout, and we got to get rid of you
somebody's
too.
yelling
Yeah.
at you.
Well, it's
Yeah,
it's
right.
the same. It's the same premise of what I just identified. Put your hand up and basically just give an idea of what we should do, and it's really usually is prefaced by, well, you know what we should do, fill in the blank, right? And then, okay, did you put your hand up to lead that effort to basically?
Well, and
do that?
your example was very fair,
Right.
where you're saying, okay, I'm going to write this down.
Right.
Now, who's going to take this piece of paper and put it in action? We do that every month at our board meetings, because we're saying, great, okay, that and $1.75 get you coffee. Who's going to put this
Exactly.
in place? And
And then we
that's
do the
what-
same thing to our elected officials. I mean,
Yeah, very much.
you know, we in the height of emotional reaction to something, we will basically, chastise, lambast, put in the stockades at the city square and hit with rotten tomatoes, proverbially on social media, right? Somebody who's sitting in the chair as underperforming, not doing the way it should be. I could do it better. Okay, well then, are you running? No. I'm just going to say that. Well, terrific. For those who even do that and then run, they forget that once you sit in that seat, your limitations are driven by what the rules and regulations and the ordinances that are in place. So you could promise the sky and the stars and the moon that you're going to basically do things completely differently. But when you get elected and sit in that seat, you're subject to Brown Act. You're subject to all kinds of things that may limit what you think is possible.
Well, and bringing it back to the theme on the afternoon is that nonprofits are notorious, very, very similar to government, is notorious for just lock and load and just status quo. And we have had to stay fairly nimble, and it's hard when we've been around for over 4 decades to go, okay, we've always done it that way. But and I'm using Paul's point, is going, well, wait a minute. Okay, we've always hired this way. Resumes come in, we look at it, we do what we do. We have to regroup, and why are we not going to senior centers and saying, hey, you want a sense of purpose, real purpose, and some income? It's genius, but you've got to stay nimble. You cannot just do status quo.
Yeah, we have not recruited at senior centers. I mean,
Right.
people are actually experiencing a perfect example in real time of being nimble and reinventing yourself right here on that particular topic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I could contribute. I just want to tell you that you guys are doing God's work. Really, as a good Irish Catholic, I'm glad somebody's taken this on. I didn't realize it's as hard, and that it's getting even harder. Populations living longer, prices going up, government cutbacks, on and on. People overwhelmed, and too many good causes that I just can't fund them all. All of those are more reason. How do people, if they want to take action, if you've motivated them to step up and say, maybe I will raise my hand, maybe I will give more, maybe I will check out what you're doing, maybe I will go apply to work for you or volunteer, whatever. Give us all those numbers.
Paul, here's the thing too, right? I just want to throw this in. Okay, it is understandable that when you outline it the way you just did, that people would feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And just literally shut down.
Right. That's my fear.
Right. Well, that's a possibility at any juncture, right?
Right.
But it's the old adage, right? And I'm going to use this. I don't know if this applies exactly, but how do you deal with an elephant? How do you deal with that? How do you eat an elephant, where it's basically this overwhelming,
One
huge
bite
thing in
at a
front of
time,
you? You
right?
eat them one bite at a time. But in order to eat one bite at a time, you actually have to eat.
Yeah.
So you got to roll up your sleeves and
gotta
find
step
whatever
into the arena.
little thing and step into the arena. Well, as a volunteer, I will tell you this, okay? The reward you get from volunteering for a cause bigger than yourself, for the greater common good, is a reward that no amount of money on its own will ever match. It's a totally different side of your soul that basically gets rewarded.
And you know that when we sit there in the board meetings and we're gleeful to have you as a new board member and just say, oh my God, how did we luck out? What did we do to
You're too
deserve
kind.
this? You're sitting there going, oh my gosh.
I'm so glad to be here. How
we're a
did I
greater
get lucky?
sum
Exactly.
because of it. And you're reaping a reward from it. And Dan, hopefully the same for you.
And that doesn't get old, gentlemen. I mean, I've been involved in nonprofits probably for the better part of 20 years, okay, in an active manner. That never gets old. In fact, when I have had windows where I have not been involved, you feel like you basically have something missing. There's a part of you
that's
that's
a
not
good
being
point.
fed.
And that's where you can take the, don't should me and I won't should you. That's where you can take that off the table and just say, it's not mine unless I'm offering it back. And then it really becomes yours. I don't care what the subject is. And that's what you're doing.
Well, if you're talented enough to understand that there may be something that needs to be done, your talent may be exactly what is needed to make that possible. So don't just suggest it, but also stand up behind it and put your hand up and say, I will lead the effort on this.
So can I end with my favorite quote here as we wrap up, and then you can give us websites and stuff here. As we enter the 2020s, I'm a historian enough to go look at the 1920s and a man named Teddy Roosevelt who said this: it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. His famous man in the arena quote from 100 years ago. Maybe more so than ever.
That's an amazing quote. I'm going to say something else about Teddy
I
Roosevelt.
thought that was written about me.
Well, he just, I think, associated with
that's
it,
why
right?
You and Teddy,
Yeah, you influenced
The
him to remember
mustache.
that. But I'm going to share something else about Teddy Roosevelt, right? And it had to be a challenge to do this, right? It's, the statement goes that you will never be as cool as Teddy Roosevelt riding on a moose. Okay. And if you don't believe that, go look up a picture. Okay, there's a picture of Teddy Roosevelt riding on a moose.
Party,
right?
yeah.
The Bull Moose Party, right? The point is this: I don't think it was easy to get on the moose. It was a challenging thing to find yourself on that moose. But the feeling of basically being involved in a challenging effort.
Yeah, get on the moose.
Okay, get on the moose,
Jump
people.
the shark,
Right?
baby.
Jump
I
the
like
shark,
it, yeah.
exactly. Right? Because you get to talk about that later, and you get to feel good about it, and we need you. We really, really need you in whatever capacity you're willing to basically be of service. You are needed very much. So Giving Tuesday, Giving Wednesday, Thursday,
Giving
whatever
tomorrow,
it is, right?
yeah.
Giving tomorrow, we are in the giving season, okay? Find something that speaks to your soul that you can be passionate about and be of service, because I will tell you the reward is immeasurable. And with that, Dan, if you'll just give everybody the links and everything they
Well,
need.
again, just go to www.proindependence.org. Very easy, because the organization is called Project Independence, so simplified
And we are pro-independence.
Absolutely.
Is that what you guys are fighting for, independence here? I thought we had a revolution a couple hundred years ago. I thought we settled
We're
that one.
fighting
Still
for
fighting.
independence for people who don't always get it unless there
Yeah.
are people to advocate for
Isn't
them.
that the truth?
And I mean, I can't wait to bring some more of our clients in and
Oh,
share
absolutely.
this, or
That's the
somehow
key.
find a way to share these stories, because they are amazing human beings.
And
We'll go
share-
on the road. We'll go.
And share whenever you have that event coming up where people can actually come out and experience it, and those.
Well,
Title
we
to
will
that.
have our walk. We have our annual walk for independence is September 12th this year.
What was the other
please
event that
take
you
the-
were talking about, where you go to Catalina or something?
Oh, well, we have the Catalina event is for clients, but let me. I will give a shout out to one of our wonderful corporate partners or community members is the Paul Mitchell School of Costa Mesa.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's visited that. It's over at SoCo, and we love their studio. It's just these students, the stylist students, they open their doors once a year. We call it Day of Beauty, and they're doing it this year for the season spruce up. We're bringing in a bunch of our clients in to give them free haircuts on the day, and it is this Sunday, September 8th at 10 o'clock, and all are welcome. Dan's going to bring snacks, and but it's just, you talk about joy. You talked about joy.
So
you want to get
the public can come out and experience
I
this?
would love the public to come. Yeah, just look for, come on over to Paul Mitchell School at Costa Mesa at SoCo on Sunflower. Or it's actually a Highland Avenue.
It's on Highland Avenue.
You can't miss it, but it is just joy in action, 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And
some people may know SoCo as the OC mix, basically, too.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. But we have, they're one of our partners, and they love to do it and
how
celebrate
cool.
our clients.
Experience it. Be
Yes.
part of it.
And
Please do.
I've gotten haircuts there too. I've gotten shaves there too. Actually, my barber used to be an instructor at Paul Mitchell's.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have put myself.
Oh, we
under
love the
hands
vibe
of
there. The vibe there
It's
is
a
so
really cool
fun.
vibe.
And in
Yeah, it really
conjunction
is
with
a
the
cool-
Project Independence vibe, it doesn't get more fun than that.
No, it's
so.
a terrific environment.
And come out for the day. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stores there. There's Portola Coffee. There's some furniture stores. Do some Christmas shopping. Come in, get a little makeover. Support the organization. I'm sure we'll have people out there talking about Project Independence. Come on by.
Come on.
Absolutely.
And with that, I will say
Happy
thank
you came on by. Always happy to hear what you're doing, and happy to hear you guys are out fighting the good fight.
True.
Thank you,
Thanks
Paul.
for coming in, guys,
Oh,
and
our
sharing.
pleasure.
Get out there and get involved, people, and join us next week for another episode of the Raad Life. Thanks, everybody.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gontos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.